Hi everyone, my name is Peter from Olum Bootcamp. Welcome to video number 5 of my Python tutorial for beginners series. In this video tutorial, I'm going to discuss what are variables in Python using this Jupyter Notebook. Jupyter Notebook is just an IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, which is basically an editor we use to write code, just like you use Microsoft Word or Notepad to write your text. Before I dive into today's tutorial, let me share with you how you can take advantage of this video tutorial and also how you can learn how to code. Learning how to code is very easy. You just need to imitate what your teacher or tutor is demonstrating in code. Just like you used to imitate when your kindergarten teacher used to teach you how to write the alphabets from A to Z, and also how to write numbers from 1 to 10, and also how to draw, for example, a picture of a cat or a table. You just look and you imitate in your paper. You used to imitate in your paper, but here you imitate the code in your Jupyter Notebook. And after some time, these coding skills will be passed to you just like magic. That is what is called the mystery of learning. Now, let us start our tutorial. Because we'll be doing the practical using Jupyter Notebook, the first thing is to go to the search bar and you search Jupyter. You'll see a Jupyter Notebook icon. So once you click it, Jupyter Notebook dashboard will open in a new tab. Also, there will be a Jupyter Notebook server that will open on the side. So you should not close this server, you only minimize it. So the first thing when you are creating a Python project is going to your desktop, and you create a folder that is called a working directory. So in this folder, let us name it at a working directory. Once you create this folder called working directory, you go back to your dashboard, and you go to desktop, and then if you click last modified, you will see the file you have just created. So once you click it, you will go inside it, you will see that it's empty. So the first thing in this working directory, you need to create a Python Jupyter Notebook by going to this new button and you click Python 3. A Python 3 Jupyter Notebook will open in a new tab. So the first thing is just renaming your Jupyter Notebook from uh, from this title, from untitled to say Python variables, because we are learning about Python variables. So once you hit rename, you'll have renamed your Jupyter Notebook from this text box that is next to Jupyter Notebook logo. So the first thing that we'll do to demonstrate variables, we write a comment about what we want to learn. So we want to create or define a variable called x and assign it a value of 5. So this is a comment which usually begins with this hash symbol. So whenever you see this hash symbol, it means that everything after the hash symbol is a comment, and Python should ignore it. But this comment is very important because it's explained the code that we are just about to write. For example, the code that you are about to write is to create or define a variable called x and assign a value. So the syntax for doing this is starting with the name. So we always start with the name of the variable on the left, and then we use this equal. So this is not equal to, this is called assignment operator in Python, and then you put value 5. So what this means, so this the syntax for creating a variable in Python is this one. So using this equal sign, this is called assignment operator. So this is how we create or define a variable in Python. So when we run it, we will not see anything because it will just create a memory location in a. So once we want, when we want to see whatever is in X, we need now to use the print function. So we write print X. So we can write a comment on top of it that what this code is doing, it's just printing the value in the variable called x. So once you hit this run button, you will see that it will print the value that is in the variable that you created called x, that or the value that the value that x is assigned to, x is referencing to. Now, you should also remember that when using variables in Python, Python is case sensitive. So, for example, if you try to print x with a capital X, and yet you created a variable with a small x, so this one will not work because it will tell you that x, name x, is not defined because you have not defined any variable with a name x. But for example, if now we insert a new cell above it and we create a new variable, so you can create a new variable called now capital X and assign it value of 5. So if you create capital X as a name and then you assign it a value 5, so this variable will be different from this variable because this small x is not is viewed as a different name as this capital X. So if you create this variable, then you print, now it will work because you have created, or creating a variable is also called defining. It's also called you define. You can create or defining, those are the same words in Python. So it's 5. So this is what you should remember, that always the name of the variable is always on the left of these assignment operators, and the values are always on the right of this assignment operator. Another important thing to remember is that it's case sensitive. So this small x with capital X, those are different names. Now, let me tell you what a variable is. I will use this photo to demonstrate what a variable is. In this Jupyter Notebook, we created a variable called x, small x, that was assigned to a value of 5. So I want you to see that each and every box in this grid is a memory. So assume that this is a memory, and each slot in the memory can carry only one value. So in this area of the memory, there is an object called 5. 5 is therefore a data object. So this data object, now when you create a variable called small x in Jupyter Notebook using this assignment operator. Basically, what you are doing is that you are creating this link. So this link from a variable called small x that is mapping to this area of the memory that has a data object 5. So creating this link or now x can be said to be a reference to 5, or you can say that small x is pointing to a data object 5, or also you can say that small x is binded to an object called 5. Now you can create another variable called capital X that is referencing this data object called 5 in the memory. Also, you can say that this capital letter X is pointing to a data object called 5. Now, the process of creating this link or creating this pointing to an object in Python is what is called creating a variable. And this capital X and small x, they are called variable names. So just I love using this photo because it shows me the how variable are, and it also brings a better picture of what is a variable is. So the bottom line is that whenever you are thinking of a variable, just think of a variable name that is pointing to a data object. So whenever you want to use 5, you'll just use x like the way you are doing in algebra. Now, assuming that you want to create a variable called y that is assigned a value 4. So the comment of it for it, it will be create or define a variable called y and assign a value of 4 to it. So create or define a variable called y and assign a value of 4 to it. So basically, the variable name as usual, they appear on the left, and then this one is called assignment operator, and this is the data object, which is a 4. So what basically you are doing in this photo, you can be able to see you are creating this link. So y is pointing to a data object for that in the computer memory. So creating a variable is creating this link, that is y is pointing to 4 or is referencing a data object 4. Now assume that you want to add the value of 5 and 4. So you can do it right away. For example, if you run this line, you'll see that you have created a variable called small y, which is pointing to a data object 4. If you want to see view the value that y is pointing to, you just use a print statement. So this print statement is used to view the objects that are in a particular variable. So you inside this parenthesis is now where you put the name of the variable as an argument or an input of this function. So you should always remember that inputs of functions are put inside these two parentheses. So if you hit the run button, you'll be able now to see the value that y is pointing to. So let's say that you want to create now this variable called total that has the sum of x and y. So what you'll do, you'll create. So the task is create a variable called a total that has the sum of x and y. So what you'll do, we always start with the name of the variable. So the name of the variable that you are creating is this total. So you always start with the name of the variable. So it is total. And then we assign. So this assignment operator actually is what creates the link to the to the memory of the computer. So you are assigning it, say a value of x plus y. So the moment you type x, so this x is referring to a value 5. This one. Not that one, but this one, the first one that you created. So this one you can use now x because you created this variable. Now you can be able to use x instead of 5. And also you created a variable called y that is pointing to 4. Therefore, you can use the variable name y instead of 4. Now, if you now what this code is doing, first of all, the computation on the right of this assignment operator will be performed first. So x plus y will be performed first, and then it will create a data object, which is because x is 5 and y is 4, so the result will be 9. So 9 is a data object in Python. Now this 9 will be assigned to a variable name called total using this assignment operator. Now, if you hit run, you will not see any output. The reason why you have not seen any output, because the purpose of that code is to bind the name total to a data object that is 4, that is 9, which is the sum of x, which is 5, and y, which is 4. Now to view now the value that is binded to this variable name called total, you need to go to Jupyter Notebook, and maybe you can start with a comment. View the value in the variable called total. Now to view, you use a print statement. So then inside this parenthesis is where now you put this variable name without these quotation marks. So you just put total. So then if you hit run, you'll see the value 9. So what this indicates is that a data object 9 is binded to this variable name called total. So the bottom line is that whenever you are thinking of a variable, it's better to think that it is pointing to a data object or a Python object that is already in the computer memory. Or you can say that you can think of variable names as addresses to the computer memory. So whenever you want to use 9, you can use total instead. Whenever you want to use 4, you can use y instead. Whenever you want to use 5, you can use small x or also capital X, because they are pointing to the same value. Now, assume that you want to create, so this one are called integers. These are numbers. Now assume that you want to create a variable name called first name that is pointing to an area in the memory that has a string called Olum. What you'll do, so let us start with a comment. So create a variable a variable called first name that is that so just let us leave our comment there. Create a variable called first name. So because the variable name is called first name, and then usually in Python we use this underscore to separate a variable names. The reason why we use underscore to separate variable names is because variable names cannot have a space. For example, you can't create a variable name with called first, then a space name. It has to be one name. Because it has to be one name, that's why it's a good practice to put this underscore just to make it one word or one name. Then you say this assignment operator is actually what creates this link here. Now this link, we are pointing to an area in memory that has the first name of this school. So we can say the first name of is Olum. So Olum is the first name. So then if you run it, you'll have created this variable. So first underscore name will be pointing to this area in memory that has a string OLUM, Olum. And what you should think about a string is basically a sequence of character. So a character OLUM. So this one forms a string, and a string are always indicated. They are always enclosed in these double quotation marks, or also you can use single quotation marks if you want. Now you can also create a variable called second name. To create a variable called second name, we always have to start with the name of the variable. So the name of the variable is always on the left. So we say that last underscore name, and then we put this assignment operator just to create this link that we talked about. So we are pointing to this string that is called bootcamp. So because this one is a string, this data object is of a type string, we have to enclose it with these quotation marks. So we can say bootcamp, bootcamp, bootcamp. Now, if we hit this run button, we'll not see anything because the purpose of this code is just to assign this data value, which is a string, to a variable name called last name, or to bind this last name to this data object. Now, assume that you want to create a full a variable called full underscore name. To create this variable called full underscore name, you should always remember that you have to begin with the name of the variable, which is full name. Now, we can combine the content of this cell and the content of this cell to this cell here, so that this cell you can concatenate, or you can combine this value and this value in this cell. So that is what I want to show you how to do, how you can combine the content of this cell memory and the content of this cell memory. So what you can do is that you can say first name, then first underscore name, and then you add. So you use this plus symbol, and then you say last underscore name. So this is not addition. This is called a concatenator operator. Its work is to combine. This one is a string, and also this one is a string. So when you are combining two strings together, that is called a concatenation operation using this addition symbol. Now if you, and then after the result, after combining them, you'll assign it to a variable name called full name. And remember, because you can't, this full name cannot have a space. So because it cannot have a space, to make it one name, we have to put this underscore. Now let us run our code using this run button. When we run using this run button, we will not see any output. The reason why we will not see any output is because the work of that code is just to create this link or to bind the name, full name, to this variable name, this string, which is called Olum Bootcamp, which is the concatenation of this and this. Now, what you should also realize is that when you run, you not get any output. Now, to view the content in the variable called full underscore name. So always remember, when you want to view any object or any value in a particular variable, you use print statement. And then inside this parenthesis, we put the variable names. You should remember, variable names are not enclosed in quotation marks. That is something very important to note. Now inside here is where you will type full underscore name. So when you hit run, you will see Olum Bootcamp. But now the problem is that uh, there is no space here, and we needed a space in between here. Now to create this space, we can add an empty. We can add, or we can concatenate in between it uh, a string with one space only. So this one is not an empty string, it has one space inside it. So when you run it, you'll see now the space will be introduced. This is because this one is a string, so it will be concatenated with a string with only one space, and it's also be concatenated with another string that with another string. So these are three strings: 1, 2, and 3. So this is, you should always remember that you can only concatenate a string to a string. You cannot concatenate a string to what is called something like this one is a number, an integer. So you can't concatenate. For example, you can't do, you say like password equals to, then you say that last name plus you say x. So this one will bring an error. Why? Because this one is a string and this one is a number. It's actually an integer. So for you to be able to combine these two, you can only do something like you enclose this with this parenthesis, and then you use this called str, this method called str, which is an inbuilt method, also called predefined method. So what this is doing is actually converting the data type of x from a number, an integer, to a string. This is what is called typecasting. So when you run it, you'll see now it will run. To view the content that are in a variable called password. So we start with a comment. view the data object in the variable called password. So as always, we use the print statement, and then we put the name of the variable that we want to view its content. So then if you hit run, we see that Bootcamp has been concatenated with a value 5, which was in X. So this is another important concept to remember when you are dealing with variables. Now, let us talk about the rules that we must follow when naming our variables in Python. The first rule is that the variable name must start with a letter, that is A, B, C up to Z, or an underscore. But the rest of the characters in the variable name can be numbers mixed with letters, that is alphanumeric. Also, it can contain underscore in it. For example, assume we want to create a variable called first name, and we assign it a value of Peter. So let's start with a comment. Create a variable called first name and assign a value of Peter to it. So now the code for creating a variable called first name. So because our variable name cannot have a space, we'll use an underscore to separate this space. So we can say first underscore name, then we assign it a string value of Peter, which is my first name actually. Now, if we run it, we'll see it will run successful. So if we want to print the value in the variable called first name, first underscore name. So we use the print function in lowercase, and then we put the name of the variable, which is first underscore name. So if we run it, we'll see that it will run successful. Now assume that you want to write it using a number so that you can violate this rule. So you say first, it's starting with 1. So we are expecting it to give an error. It has given us a syntax error because we have violated this rule by starting the variable name with a number, and yet it must be a string. It has to be letters from A to Z or an underscore. So for example, now if we correct it by starting with an underscore, it will work. So if we run it, we'll see it will point the variable name called first underscore first name will be pointing to a string data value called Python. Now if we want to print it, we have now to, inside the parenthesis, we put this print. We put the name of the variable that we want to see its value. You see it's working perfectly. Now we can also uh, mix, like first uh, first underscore, and then also if you want to put maybe a number, so that because the rest can be numbers. First name 6 Peter. So if we run it again, if you want to see the value, you have to put the exact name as an argument. So if we run it, we'll see it will run. Now the bottom line is in this rule that you make sure that the variable names are starting with letters A, B, C up to Z or an underscore, but the rest can contain numbers from 0 to 9, letters from A, B up to Z, and also underscore. The second rule is that reserved words and keywords in Python, such as and, false, true, cannot be used as variable names. Previously, we have seen some keywords. So any keyword in Python should not be used as a variable name. For example, if you create a variable called and then you assign it a value, say 5, it will give you an error. It will give you a syntax error because this and is a special keyword in Python that is used to see whether two conditions have been met. So, for example, this one is used to see maybe x, you can say a variable x equals to 5, and then y equals to 6. So you can say if x is greater than 5 and y is greater than 5, print both. So print, so we'll print a string both x and y are greater than 5. Then you can say else if this condition has not been met. If this condition has not been met, we'll print at least. It will be a string, so it will be at least one is not greater than 5. So it has printed at least one is not greater than 5 because actually x is not greater than 5. But because this print statement will only run if this condition has been met. That is, both x and y are both greater than 5. For example, if we change now this to 7, we are expecting this line to print because this condition has been met and this condition has been met. So we run it. So that is how so this is a special keyword in Python, and therefore it cannot be used. Also, this condition evaluates either true or false, and this condition evaluates to either true or false. So true and false are also special keywords in Python, and you cannot name your variable as say true equals to 5. So it will give you an error. Also, you cannot say like false equals to 6. It will give you an error. So there are so many special keywords in Python which they cannot be used when you are naming your variable. The third rule is that there are some special characters in Python that cannot be used as variable names. For example, assume that we want to create a variable called last name and assign it your last name. Now, the variable name will be last, then underscore name. This is a valid name because it's starting with a letter. Now, if we assign it a value, we'll use this assignment operator, and I will assign it my last name, which is Olum. Now, if I run it, so let me add many lines, 3 lines. Then if I run this, it will go to this line now. So then if I want to view the value in last name, so I will use a print statement, and then I'll put last underscore name. So if I run it, I'll see it has printed my last name. Now assume that I include, say, hashtag here. So it will convert everything as to a comment. So if I include this hashtag, says a place like this place, it will convert the rest to be a comment. So instead of creating, it will be actually displaying the value of last name. So you should avoid completely using these special characters that have a special meaning in Python. Now, the fourth rule is that we should know that in Python, the names are case sensitive. For example, name is different from name. For example, if you have a variable called name and you assign it a value, say Peter Olum. So, and then you can also print the name. So if you run it, you'll be able to see that it will print your name. Now, assuming that maybe you print this name with a capital, it will tell you that name is not defined because this name is different from this variable. This variable called capital with name in capital is different from this name with all small letter. Also, for example, if you type name starting with a capital, it will also give you a name error because this one is not defined. So you should note that in Python, variable names are case sensitive. So that is why it is always a good practice to make sure that all your variables are in small letters. All your variable names are in small letters, like we have done practically in this tutorial. So it's so that when you want to maybe use your variable, it will be easy to recall. So I will encourage you to ensure that you take a habit of using small letters when you are naming your variables. Another habit that is not actually a rule but a good practice is that when you are naming your variable, it is always a good practice to make those variable names descriptive. For example, I want to store my first name in a variable called first name, or I want this variable called first name to point to the area in the memory that is storing my first name. So it is always a good practice for me to use a descriptive variable name so that I can recall. For example, if you say like x, if you say like x1, you will actually not know what x1 means. So yes, it will work because it's not a rule, and you print x1, but it's not a good practice. So my advice to you when you are writing your programs, you should make sure that the variable names are kind of descriptives. For example, this one, let us return it back to first underscore name. so that we can know that is pointing to my first name. So then we can also print it. So it will be easy even to type your name when you are accessing it, or when you are printing it. First name. So you can easily run. And also, for example, this X, Y, so I'm assuming that X and Y are descriptive enough because we know X is derived from the algebra uh, in maths, where X is always referring to the first number, Y is the second number. You see, and then you can see even here I tried to make my the variable name as descriptive as possible by using last name and pointing to the area in memory that is storing my last name. So that is the advice that I'll give you as a bonus, because it's not a rule but a good practice. Now, I think we have covered sufficient ground concerning variables in Python. Thank you very much for watching this video. If this video has been helpful to you, kindly remember to hit the like button, and also you can subscribe to it so that you can help us to reach other people using this information.